3 of the series and looking at psychological factors that affect talent development. Psychology. What motivates an athlete to perform well within their sport? Is it intrinsic motivation, so they are able to motivate themselves, or is it extrinsic motivation? They require some type of motivation from the outside, so from other people. Clayton 1976 suggests that although investigations of achievement motivation, also referred to as need to achieve or NAC, have steadily increased in the number of the last 25 years or so, questions continue to be raised as to the methods employed to measure. Extrinsic motivation. Some athletes find motivation through outside matters, physical items that they can either get their hand on or motivate through getting praise. Some athletes may display extrinsic motivation, that is, they may partake in a sport in order to derive tangible benefits, such as materials, e.g., trophies, or social benefits like prestige, rewards, or to avoid punishment. Robert J. 1999. In some cases, you have athletes that are extremely extrinsically motivated due to their socioeconomic status. So they grew up poor and they want to improve their status of life. So furthering on more from that, some athletes who grew up poor may be more motivated to develop their skills or talent to reap the rewards of to reap the extrinsic rewards of the sport, so being paid and being able to help their family and themselves. An example of this is Gervonta Davis. This type of motivation underlies athletes' behavior is determined in part by various social factors present by Robert J. 1999. Continuing on from that, Gervonta Davis, our example, was brought up in a rough neighborhood as a kid due to his parents stealing drugs. As he wanted to get out of that and not struggle, he learned and developed his skills in boxing. So again, furthering developing his skills and taking his talent, so developing his talent to reap an extrinsic reward, which is so in terms now he is now allowed him it has now allowed him to box at pay-per-view events and now holds the WBA regular heavyweight belt. Though extrinsic motivation can really drive an athlete like Gervonta, there are still problems with it, however, and how it impacts an athlete's talent development. When an athlete is developing and extrinsic motivated, after receiving a number of awards or praise, they will almost become bored of receiving it. Cheating and behaving in an unsportsmanlike conduct, individuals may become too focused on extrinsic elements of their involvement in sport. Robert J. 1999. Extrinsic motivation can almost make an athlete selfish, in which they perform in a way in which they only want to reap the praise. So they want all the shine. They don't want to almost develop other skills. So, for example, in basketball, you may have a player that always wants the praise, so they won't pass the ball to another player. Or again, like being bored of reaping the reward. So, for example, a player may get a big contract and then they may regress in their training, causing them to not be able to perform at that standard anymore. Therefore, they are not worth that contract anymore. As you can see in the example, there's Ben Simmons who actually experienced this firsthand. Intrinsic motivation and having that dog in you. Intrinsic motivation is when an athlete can motivate themselves. They don't need any outside factors to keep them geared to perform a task. People are extrinsically motivated. The experience of goal attainment transfers to pursuing the goal. Custis and Arndt, 2005, Fishbach et al., 2004. An athlete that is intrinsically motivated is more focused on learning more about the sport. If a person is talented and is intrinsically motivated, they will find it easier to be able to learn and be persistent to develop because they will always look to be better at the actual sport rather than want to gain the rewards from the sport. The individual cannot separate themselves pursuing the activity from receiving its benefits. They may even find it strange to answer what they are getting out of pursuing a particular task because the main purpose of engaging in the task is simply to be able to do it. In the person's mind, there is a perceptual fusion between intrinsic activity and the purpose. These two are one. Cool. Last example, I'll use Michael Jordan, who firstly, as when he was becoming a basketball player, he didn't make his high school team. So he intrinsically motivated himself to keep on going and try harder. There was the reward of becoming or making the team, but he still had to be somewhat persistent and to be able to want to try again because he didn't make it at first. He also used intrinsic motivation to fuel a lot of his performances, even during his training when he wanted to further develop himself. He didn't possess a left hand, so they said he couldn't go left. They always said he couldn't go left, and he wouldn't necessarily need it because he still was great without his left hand. But instead of not doing anything about it, he just aimed to get better throughout his career. Even throughout his career, he got better at his footwork later in his career. He wasn't as athletic because he got older. He just developed his game to be more finesse wise rather than stay in this thing where once he gets older, he won't be able to perform as good because he would be athletically confined.